Well, good morning, Irene.
Good morning. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. How about you?
Fabulous.
Well, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
Same to you.
thank you so much. It's good to see you again.
Yes, we
Yes,
missed the meeting that was this fall. I guess she had some difficulty. So
yeah,
next conference, we'll see each other.
that's right. Absolutely. Now, are you going to be there in November of this year?
Yes, next year. You mean 2024,
That's correct.
November? Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I usually do try to go.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining the author's table, and I'm so pleased that you're here. And so let's get started.
Sounds great.
All right, Irene. So, describe in one word your book.
Inspirational.
There you go. Okay. Inspirational sounds very good because it's an interesting topic. Um,
It is. Everybody is so interested and fascinated by nutrition, but they're hoping in some way, and I use the term inspirational because my goal is to help people understand the food behaviors. It's so problematic when people think that they
that's right.
are just frustrated with what they're doing and they don't understand it's not their fault. The images and the messages we get every time we turn around to eat the wrong food, too much the wrong food,
That's right.
to make everything too easy in life, and that's the problem. It's too easy and too convenient.
Yeah,
It's just the reason we're all having such a time just enjoying food in the proper amount and not feeling guilty about it, not constantly binging on the wrong food.
that's correct. Absolutely. Now, do you feel you were inspired to write, or more of a motivation to create awareness regarding your subject matter, or both?
I After 45 years of doing nutrition counseling, I had to write this book.
Yeah.
If I have to make a statement, I practically kept vomiting out because my goal was to get out of the field of nutrition counseling. Sorry, my lab has decided
Oh.
to look at people outside and bark.
Well, he's agreeing with you, Irene.
Yes, he's agreeing. Absolutely. He's agreeing
That's right.
with me. My goal was really to say, what could I do? Not that I'm leaving the profession because I still love to speak, but I no longer am involved with the day to day nutrition counseling. What could I leave people that I truly felt would help them?
Hmm.
And it's people just stopping for a second and saying, what is my habit? What are my habits that are so strongly ingrained I don't even realize they're there? Do I have fatigue eating? What time of day? Am I going to go totally off track? And this goes for alcohol
That's right.
too. It goes for drugs too. The book makes you aware of all habits and how they influence you, and then how people influence you. You don't realize it, but you have saboteurs all around you.
That's right.
You have environments that sabotage you. So I really wanted people to be very aware. And though you can't always terminate every saboteur, you can change the way you react to them.
That's correct. Absolutely. Now, was when you were putting your book together, Irene, was did you find it difficult, or was it easy for you to put together?
It took me 8 years because I kept changing the order of things. It's like which goes first, the chicken
Oh.
or the egg? And secondly, I just wanted to do a workbook. When I tried to write it down as a book, I felt it wasn't as effective, that the person reading it had to make their own decisions. And I never tell people what to do. People think dietitians tell you what to do, and they really don't, unless they're only given 5 minutes before you're out the door and you have to understand exactly what to eat or you'll be in the hospital again.
That's right.
Other than that, they want you to understand the basic principles, but then take your own habits and your own financial situation, the way you food shop, and make it pertinent to your lifestyle. So
Yeah.
it
It's like a
was a
doctor.
long process.
Yeah, it's like a doctor. You know, they tell you what you have, then it's up to you if you want to listen or not.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Um, now, now your book is called, and I like the what you have in the background. Now it's called Can You Be Alone Without a Bowl of Chocolate? Now that can
Or
be
with a bowl of chocolate.
yes.
Can you be alone with a bowl of chocolate?
Now that's temptation by itself, isn't it?
Right. And the correct answer is no. And when
Mm-hmm.
I hear people say that, I say, yes, you are in the right track. But we constantly put ourselves in the room alone with chocolate. It's not only chocolate. I put the seven most common foods there.
Yes.
It could be cheese, it could be nuts, things that perceive as healthy. But the point is, we're constantly putting ourselves in a room with these foods, and we've got to figure out a way that we can just eat a small amount and not feel so guilty that we either eat it so fast we don't even taste it, or we wait till everybody leaves and then we start eating it.
Now, do you believe in moderation and not elimination?
I do. It, with the exception that if you answer, I can't be alone with chocolate, there's sometimes where you say it's too dangerous to eat it.
Mm.
For example, if you're alone, you're already very overtired, or perhaps something emotionally has gone wrong that day, then you have to say, no, I can't be alone with this. It'd be safer for me to go out with a friend to a restaurant, have or share a small dessert, than to be alone with a whole dessert in your home. It's just not safe. So I believe in moderation when it's safe.
Right.
And if it's not safe, you can practice those behaviors until it's safe, and then you can eat that food.
Now, have you ever worked with people that have like allergic reactions to food, but they
Oh,
but
absolutely.
but yet they still want to eat it?
Well, absolutely. And there's more and more people who have intolerances, particularly gluten, where we used to
Hmm.
think it was only 1 in 7, and we now know the incidence of celiac disease or gluten sensitivity is much higher than we previously thought. So um, I think that most people will stop eating a food that makes an obvious reaction. But the problem with gluten is that people don't know that they're causing damage. And they'll
Hmm.
say, oh, that's okay, not realizing physiologically, if they've messed up the little villi in their intestine, that little piece of toast might affect them for 3 months until the intestine is entirely overturned because they said, oh, I don't have any immediate reaction. Because most people with celiac don't feel it immediately, or they may just feel some bloating. It's long term. Now, something like peanuts, that's far more dangerous. And I
Right.
don't think people would make that mistake more than once
That's
because they're probably in an ambulance.
that's correct. Yes. Now, would that be like for like Crohn's disease and that too? Because you still have to be careful what you eat.
Well, Crohn's or other inflammatory bowel diseases are very different in terms of it's not an actual reaction to one specific food, it's a reaction in your intestinal tract to practically everything that's inflamed. So often, doing elimination diets and gradually doing challenges will help people, but you can't give anybody a list
Right.
in an inflammatory bowel as to what will bother them. And it's often environmental factors too, environmental stress or uh, physiological stress that your body's perceiving that's causing this inflammatory response. It's so much more complicated than
Oh,
handing
sure.
a piece of paper, which is
Absolutely.
why I don't believe in diets at all. I believe in understanding your food behaviors, seeing in moderation. But if there's a food that hurts you, accepting that perhaps that has to be eliminated. And that's really hard,
Oh, absolutely.
especially with younger people.
Now, like, because there's so many, and through all the years, too, all the different diets and
Yes,
like the herbal diet and the Cambridge diet years ago.
right.
So did you not really believe in that kind of stuff, or you really like to stay with like you are what you eat? You know.
Well, I believe that, and if you look at the phases of diets, people are very self righteous about their diet. They'll say, this works for me and everybody should do it. And I like to shut them down right then. If it works for them, that's great.
Hmm.
And as a counselor, I would work with that because it's working for them. But you can't tell the next person that approach would work for them
That's correct.
because some people were on the low carb approach and it worked great for them. And for other people, the carbohydrate were really important in their diet. If they didn't continue to have carbs, they already had trouble uh, remembering how to digest them if they're developing a pre-diabetes. We want some carbs to keep the body practice at using them. So I don't like these elimination diets, and I like to look at the environment too. I really hate a diet that is like, okay, let's eat all the meat you want, not understanding there's environmental impacts of that too.
That's
And
right.
I would rather say, wow, if you really love meat, can you still keep your portion to a reasonable amount?
Hmm.
And
That's
maybe
right.
have just one meal a week or a month that is not so heavy on meat.
Now, to get back to your cover design and the book itself. Now,
Yes.
when you finished your book, Did you look for a publisher, or are you a self-publisher?
I am a self-publisher.
Okay.
It was impatience, I think. And secondly, I try social media. I have a YouTube channel, Dr. Irene's Nutrition Tidbits. And I was spending, literally, I stopped for about a year and tried to make some videos during the pandemic instead of working on the book
Hmm.
because a publisher wanted 80,000 social media followers and to get an
Wow.
agent. And I was overwhelmed at that process. I finally realized I should just write the book. And the book would speak for itself. Doing speaking engagements, which I love to do, even if it's by Zoom, speaks
Yes.
for itself. And if someday I get a publisher or an agent, I would love it because they are experts at the marketing, but it is really up to the person to still do it.
Well, you're doing a great job, Irene.
Well, the hardest part I thought was the fact that because I wanted a workbook, I had to do a lot of um, graphic artist work. And
Oh,
I
yes.
finally decided to stop trying to learn InDesign because it's a workbook. And I also have a lot of, like the person in the cover,
Is that
she
you,
is
Irene?
she is throughout the book. Yeah, it's sort of it's supposed to be me. I have more wrinkles. This is from, I had a book that's no longer in print that I wrote maybe 15, 20 years ago, Dr. Irene's Nutrition Tidbits. And I
Yes.
loved that. So she took that person and she used it. It just so happened that I found somebody, but you spend a lot of money. And my goal in writing a book was not, this is one of my favorites. I don't know if you can see that, but there's
Oh.
a person driving in a car. And it's about the fact that we don't even take the time to taste our food, that we have to think we're driving in the car and eating.
Yes.
And I do believe in some rules. For example, no eating in the car. And you have to sit down and eat. You have to taste your food. I do
Enjoy
this
it.
food boot camp. That's an 8-week program to try to change people's habits so they learn to taste. But getting a graphic artist and getting someone to
Yeah.
get it in the form ready for Amazon, I just ended up paying a professional, and I would be thrilled to someday I just get the money back I put into the book. However, I needed to do it, and it
Hmm.
was on my checklist, and you have to have a bucket list, and that was top of my bucket list.
Well, I think too is, as a self-publisher, you have complete control over it.
That's true.
And all the proceeds, I mean, they're yours. The whole thing is all up to you. and
Right.
and I think that's sort of that empowerment to where it's like, it's what I put into it.
Right.
And I think it's that self gratification too, is that whatever I do, it's all about me. you know but you're helping so many others. That's the whole thing.
That,
And
that,
when you
that
give it.
was my goal. That was
Yes.
my goal, is really to feel like, um, how could I help others
Hmm.
if I'm not doing the nutrition counseling? And I hope, and a lot of the quote on the book is actually from a psychologist on the back cover, where she said, wow, I could use this so well with my patients because I'm not an expert in nutrition. And to read this book, it's not giving out nutrition advice, it's helping people understand what needs to be changed and
Yep.
realizing they're not alone.
That's
People
right.
feel so alone with their food habits, and they're the only ones that do this and that they're abnormal. They're not alone.
And I think this stuff is not like well, this is the answer, but it's a great guide.
Right.
And it's whatever someone wants to take from that. Like you said too, you can, I mean, nurses, and I mean, it's a great guide. And to relay that information to a patient or whatever, it's I think it's crucial, though. It doesn't have to be like the all book,
Right.
but it's very critical, though. It's a wonderful thing. And I also want to talk about your step-by-step guide to better nutrition. Can you get into a little more detail about that, Irene, please?
Um, the In terms of which part of the book, you mean when the book that addresses making food choices?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Again, and people are bored with this message, but I do believe in variety.
Yes.
And I believe in screening people for disordered eating because
Hmm.
most people have a little bit of an eating disorder in them. And the number one sign of that is that they start to eat all a certain type of food and not doing variety. Nutrition is such a new science. We really don't totally understand it. So I really like when people accept that things are going to change, because they'll say, well, you told me 10 years ago not to use butter, and now you're saying to use butter. And
Hmm.
that's, first of all, not the message. The message is that if someone really hates the taste of a margarine, how much butter could I have in my
Hmm.
diet and still maintain my health? And it's different for each person. If you have a family history of heart disease,
That's
you have to
right.
be a lot more careful than the person whose all their relatives live to 99 years old and they're very
Smoked and
physically
everything else, Yes.
right,
It's
right. So, and I am a big proponent of fruits and vegetables and whole grains.
yeah,
Eating foods with less ingredients in the label is an easy thing as a base of the diet, because you pick up an apple, you pick up an orange, you have a salad.
yeah. And I
You know,
think
you have these,
the other thing too is processed foods.
right. We right that some are convenient and okay, and I really screen out. I never say all processed foods are good, because if I have somebody who's a senior who's 90 and has no energy to make a meal, I'm so glad there's a frozen meal that they can pop in the microwave,
Hmm.
that they at least eat that food. However, if you have the energy to cook, certainly I think that's a talent we're losing. And I love that people will get in the kitchen and experiment with and teach their children how to cook. Because I
Yeah.
just can't believe when I have a new mother or a new family with toddlers and they don't even know you can put a baked potato in the oven and you don't have to eat French fries every single
That's
day.
right. So I guess the TV dinners, they had something going on there, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love if people can afford it. I do love the convenience of some of these fresh prepared meals that arrive with the ingredients, particularly because almost everybody, when they hit 60, 70, they start to deal with a lot of medical problems. And many times before then, now with COVID and this COVID fatigue
Right.
syndrome that's lasting for a long time, if fatigue is a problem, but you don't have the energy to cook, if someone can afford it, at least fresh food arrives in their door and they have the energy. So that's why I'm quick to cut off any criticism of you shouldn't eat this, you should do this, you should do that. Each person has to do something that makes their life easier. If they have medical conditions that bring in fatigue and just going to the grocery store and bringing the food home, they're going to be too tired to cook it.
Right. Absolutely. Now, I want to touch base on two of programs that you've taught.
Yes, okay.
Now, you had 12 different nutrition related courses.
Yes,
You developed and implemented a healthy food boot camp, which I
yes,
thought was pretty awesome. And then Dr. Irene's nutrition tidbits.
yes.
And then also, you developed the K through 12 nutrition curriculum, in which that was pretty awesome too. Can you talk about that, Irene?
Sure. One of the projects I'm most proud of was developing for the state of Pennsylvania their K through 12 nutrition curriculum with 21 lesson plans. But
Wow.
to show you how quickly things can change, I worked on that. And then my pyramid changed to my plate. And that quickly, it was online and it was being used across the world.
How
And then
awesome.
it's been taken down because they thought that they would be able to make those changes themselves to take out my pyramid, put in my plate, and those they didn't have the funding to fund somebody to redo the curriculum, so it's offline.
Oh,
And I'm hoping, again, this is just all my hope of I do these projects to make the world a better place. There's a lot of lesson plans that have nothing to do with my pyramid, like in high school on sustainability, environment and your food habits and how it interrelates and culture and food. And those lesson plans have nothing to do with my pyramid. I don't understand why they can't consider just putting them back online. So I guess it's how much fight do I have in me to
mm-hmm.
constantly fight to keep these going? So what I did do is restart Dr. Irene's Nutrition Tidbits. Anybody can sign up at my website, which is www.canyoubealonewithchocolate.com. It's a free tidbit about nutrition. I did it years ago under a foundation grant. I had 80,000 weekly readers, but this is before everybody had podcasts and were overwhelmed with things to read. This was very early on. And eventually, when my grant stopped, I continued to write it weekly and then monthly as I ran out of energy to do these things for free, because I am trying to make my living in
Right.
nutrition too, which actually has never been too successful because I'm really careful. I don't want advertising associated with my writing because I don't want people to think it's biased. So I keep sacrificing financial success with nutrition because of my own boundaries, I suppose, and what I want to do. But anyway, I restarted it. I've only done 2 newsletters so far. And the first one was simply an example, a great study about bladder cancer and how if
Mm.
you've had bladder cancer and had surgery, you shouldn't take vitamin E, which is such a popular supplement when people are recovering from cancer. The study showed that you had a much worse outcome in terms of the bladder cancer returning. So I try to take research and just put a little tidbit out there so that whether it's a health professional or somebody with a family member who loves to take supplements, that they could say, wow, we think that there's no harm in vitamin E. This is a only one study, but maybe we should
Mm.
look at this carefully before we pop every vitamin to fight cancer if I've had it.
Right. Now, how do you feel about, or what is one of the better multivitamins that people should take?
Again, it depends on the person, though. I think the
Mm.
well-established companies that have developed it into at least life cycles, like a multi-purpose, like a Centrum, the fact that they have a Centrum Senior is recognizing that iron can be extremely dangerous
Hmm.
just to the small bit of population who can have either iron storage disease, or for men, because men had no menstrual function to get rid of iron, so
Hmm.
that you never want too much iron unless you're screened first for iron storage disease.
Oh boy.
So there's no one, but I suggest meeting in a registered dietitian can look at your whole diet and say, wow, you either need or don't need
And
a
yeah,
supplement.
and
And if you want
exercise
just
too.
like a general preventative, just be careful in your choice and making sure at least it's life cycle appropriate.
Right. Absolutely. Now, when you were doing your research on your book, now, did you do like research on, like, let's say, obesity for like younger kids too in this country and abroad?
Oh, well, it's 45 years of being in the field of
Yes.
nutrition. I was screaming obesity 30 years ago, and that we were going to have, because of changes with neighborhood safety in my own children. I played all day outside. My own children growing up, even though my own children are now in the mid to late 30s. When they were growing up, I couldn't let them run the neighborhood. I needed to know if they were walking 2 blocks away that I was walking behind them to make sure they'd get there safely.
Right.
And that affects your energy expenditure. So I knew right away we were in trouble. And then on top of that, all the marketing, and the biggest mistake parents make is asking the child what they want to eat for dinner. And the only foods a child knows becomes pizza, hamburgers, hot dogs. They don't know to say, most children don't know to say, hey, I'd like to have a piece of salmon and broccoli for dinner.
Exactly.
And so
Right.
you don't ask your kids. And the book I always recommend is Ellen Satter's um, Feeding Your Child with Love and Good Sense. And her second book, How to Get Your Kids to Eat But Not Too Much. When you start to worry about them, children who are getting a little chunky, and it's totally normal between 8 and 10, for particularly girls to start to get a little chunky. Don't freak out. Don't make a big deal about it, or you're going to create this
Right.
person obsessed with food. It's understanding their bodies are changing. We love you at any weight. Um, but there has to be um, some understanding about food and nutrition, just understanding that you are different from, say, Alice next door or Randy next door, who's able to stuff anything in her mouth any time of day and not gain a pound. For
Right.
you, you can enjoy those foods, but you might only be able to have 1 or 2 cookies. You can't eat the bag.
That's correct.
And
Yeah.
that's okay. It's how you react to that situation. And I want people to be able to eat with their families, no guilt. So the worst thing a parent can do is start criticizing at the table that someone's eating too much, because they're going to leave that table and be closet eaters. Once you get a closet eater, I just could shoot some parents because they just have made too big a deal of it. With one look, the child feels guilty, but they have to eat. Everybody should be able to sit at the meal and have only pleasant conversation No deciding to punish every child to bring out what they did bad during the day or whatever at the table. And have family meals. It's so important to good health. And if a child, everybody, if they want dessert, we have dessert. And we don't make a big deal of it.
That's correct, yes. Now, when you were putting your book together, Irene, did you put any of your own eating experiences in the book as well?
Throughout the whole thing, I tell my stories, even from I am Jewish, and the Jewish culture says, let's enjoy food. We're having people over. We've got to have a lot of food. How many noodle kugels should I make? How many batches of blintzes? And that conflicts with the fact that, and I have my husband over my shoulder saying, are you sure you're going to have enough food? Because he gets nervous if the food starts going down during the event. And it should be almost gone because you don't want the platter still full when everybody leaves, because what do you do with all this leftover food? So I tell the stories of how much I love sticky buns, and that when we were in Ocean City, New Jersey, there's a very famous sticky bun place, and how much I wanted to go there, and how I made my husband drive right by it. Because if I was going to bring a dozen sticky buns, I didn't have guests at home to eat those dozen sticky buns. I can't hide them from the freezer. If I want one, it's much safer for my husband and I to share one,
There you
walk
go.
out with one, not a dozen, because they're on sale or because there's only once every 3 years I get to this place. Buy one, sit down with a nice pot of tea and enjoy it.
And matzo ball soup.
And matzo ball soup. Love matzo
Oh,
ball soup.
I do too. They call what they call them, the cannonballs.
Yes. Well, sometimes mine can be cement balls.
Oh,
Depends on how they turn out. It's a
oh,
real talent to make matzo balls, but I do love culture, and I love people to eat the foods that are in their culture. It's
absolutely.
just that something snaps in our brain when we're able to get that food saying, oh, I haven't had this in so long. But if you look at every food, there's hundreds of thousands of foods. If you look at every one you haven't had in so long and think you have to eat them all, our bodies can't take it.
That's right.
So we have to have some limits.
Yeah, and I think too, it's nice to actually try other types of foods too, not just not
Absolutely.
yeah, and it goes back to the moderation, but
Right.
it's wonderful to learn other customs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way to learn their culture that way too.
Absolutely. Every year I take this 8 week, it's once a week course for fun about different cultures where dietitians talk to us that are from that culture, teach us about the food, and we all cook during that. We
Oh,
have a
nice.
recipe ahead of time, and it opens your eyes
Oh, yeah.
to the many tastes and the cultural
Smells.
understanding of it, so that when you have someone from that culture, you have to understand there's certain things that have got to be there. It's too important to say, that how can we make this safe for you if you have hypertension or if you have diabetes,
That's right.
and you'll understand that mentality that if you're certain cultures, Italian or Greek or Jewish, all the relatives are going to be saying eat,
That's right.
eat, eat. And
Italian. Yeah.
you have to have your own shield to
That's
say, hey,
that's
my
right.
body is not like your body,
That's
and
correct.
I'm only going to worry about myself, and this
Yes.
is what I'm going to eat.
That's right. Now, do you see yourself writing another book, Irene, at all?
I would love to write the book Healthy Food Boot Camp, because this 8 week course that I take is based on the book I just wrote.
Yeah.
But some people want to be told what to do. So I
Right.
would like to take this book, and actually, there's two books in my head just coming out. One would be a fiction book following the life of a dietitian and the counseling and working with the clients, but at the same time, bringing the principles of the book as she teaches them to this client. And that client comes to those realizations. And the second book, the Healthy Food Boot Camp book, I do every now and then online an 8 to 10 week healthy food boot camp where we set rules and each person adapts them for their own health. But certain rules are necessary sometimes to get people started.
Sure.
And it's not really a diet per se, but it's rules like, okay, we're going to have a week where you have to actually taste your food instead of shoveling it in your mouth.
That's
And you have to describe what it's going to taste like. And it may seem like people say, oh, I don't want to do that. Or not eating while watching TV. If
that's
I
right.
could have America not eat and watch TV, wow, you would see people melt away in
Yes.
terms of obesity because they don't remember that they're eating. It's mindless eating. And so it's so important, and mindful eating is in all my work. The idea that we have to be very aware and enjoy it,
That's
love it, taste it.
that's right.
Don't feel guilty and stuff it in your mouth.
So do you think when the microwave came out, that sort of killed the whole family
Oh,
sitting at the table?
actually, I think the microwave can be a wonderful thing. The problem is it's too easy again.
Right.
And it's too easy to reach into your pantry instead of having to go out and grow the food. Everything is too easy. So
Yeah.
I love the microwave. And providing it's putting in a portion control thing so that you have a time to reheat you're not spending an hour in the oven. But we have to learn a little patience.
Yes.
Like we get hungry, people want to eat, they've eaten before the meal because they're
Yes.
hungry,
It's like
and then the meal comes because
that's
they're
right.
trying to wait for an 8 o'clock dinner reservation. They're not hungry anymore.
That's right.
So
Absolutely.
why are we making these 8 o'clock dinner reservations?
Now, do you have any speaking engagements or anything coming up, Irene?
um, because I'm actually a snowbird now and now in Florida, hoping to set up more. I've been traveling with the Jewish Book Network, and I did Providence, Rhode Island, and Cherry Hill, New Jersey, because November was Jewish Book Month. So November, and then December's a little quiet. I'm hoping to get some for January as people make their New Year's resolutions. But anybody can contact me at Dr. Irene's Nutrition Tidbits at gmail.com. And I'd be glad to do Zooms with your community. I would love it.
Fantastic. Now, you have a website,
Yes,
and would you mind saying that again, please?
sure. www.canyoubealonewithchocolate.com.
Wow, that's so it's so tempting though, isn't it? Just the title, you know.
Right. Well, I hope, and I hope that people learn that it's okay to say no to being alone with it, but if you want chocolate, it might be safer to eat it with friends. Not that you're sabotaging them, but everybody has you share a chocolate bar
That's right.
versus bringing in a bowl of chocolate and having it sit there and think you, particularly as women with menstrual cycles, could walk by it and not eat it. That's not going to happen.
So like dark chocolate. See, I like dark chocolate. I remember someone saying, well, they like dark chocolate and stuff, and I always say, you can have dark chocolate, but not the whole box.
Exactly. Just because people love to rationalize. I do a lot of talking about rationalization in my book in a funny way. I try to make my book funny so we laugh at our own behaviors, but we rationalize everything. We rationalize that, oh, it's dark chocolate. Why don't I buy 6 bars to make sure I can have dark chocolate every day when the polyphenols in something like blueberries are going to be a lot higher? And if you want to have dark chocolate for that benefit, if you can eat a small piece, great.
That's right.
If you're going to eat 2 bars, 3 bars a day and you're pre-diabetic, it's not going to work. So you have to, and dietitians will help you set those boundaries. Sometimes it's just practice, accountability, but not going without that. It's okay.
That's
Even
right.
with diabetes, you can work in certain things if you understand how, because you're doing a lot more damage. I have the people who say, I know I can't have that one peanut butter cup. So instead, they're eating a huge pile of mashed potatoes, and that far more sugar and impact on their blood sugar
Mm,
than if they had just
yeah, that's right.
eaten the 110 calorie peanut butter cup.
See, that's why we need you, Irene.
Well, I was available. I no longer do the nutrition counseling, and instead, I'm trying to reach the masses. And I'm also trying to help people understand when they read about nutrition, look who wrote it.
That's
Because
right.
registered dietitians really have the knowledge, and it shouldn't be anybody just because someone says they have, whether it's an MD degree or whatever. You look at their nutrition training, and you're lucky if they had one course, and they're not behaviorally trained. And I love the new drugs. I think they offer a lot of possibilities for some people. But the fact that everybody wants to start taking them, we're going to end up with so much gastroparesis because you have to be screened to make sure you have no disordered eating in your past that included laxative abuse. If you messed up your intestinal tract already and you take one of those drugs, it could be really dangerous with impacting motility. So, and my dream, Oprah, if you're out there, I want to send her a copy of my book. My dream would be to partner with the Weight Watchers and things, because this book is behavioral. And if you combine that with the magic of the guidance of a Weight Watchers program, or the guidance of the use of these drugs to help people understand yourself, to understand your food habits, because it
Mm-hmm.
has nothing to do with appetite when you binge eat. It can do with emotions. It can do with the people around you. It can do with your cultural meanings to you of that food. You still have to learn how to control those things, because it has nothing to do with appetite.
That's right. Now, have you thought about being a consultant, Irene?
Oh, I am a consultant. Anybody that wants
Okay.
me, I am a consultant and available. And again, Dr. Irene's Nutrition Tidbits
There you
at
go.
gmail.com. I'd be glad to. I have done in my 45 years at Nutrition Program Planning, which is my private business. I will consult with health organizations or organizations who are trying to send out healthy messages. And I don't consult with things like how to make soda healthier
Oh,
because I'm not interested in false pretenses. I think it is what it is. If you would like to have a soda, fine, have a soda, but don't have a big gulp every single day. If you have prediabetes and diabetes in your family, or you're worried about obesity in your kids, don't feel like you always have to put soda out. And those are the things that I won't do. I
right.
will provide honest advice. You don't have to take it, but for anybody and food companies, I will give you very honest, direct advice.
So I can't go to 7-Eleven and get my big gulp?
No, it, well, if they have more flavored seltzer waters, that's a really good absolute hydration technique. Or if
Right.
they would make more with a mixture of 100% fruit juice with lots of seltzer to dilute it, because we tend to drink too much fruit juice. I'm not a big advocate with fruit juice with young kids. They don't realize it becomes you're drinking 3, 4 cups of it. It's just too much. But I love diluting a little fruit juice with sparkling water. And
Does,
so that's their orangeade.
doesn't that sound better, though? It
Yes,
sounds more
yes,
refreshing.
yeah, it does.
Now, okay, so hopefully in November I'll see you again, and that'd be
Yes,
wonderful. Uh,
love it.
so, but I wish you the very best, and I will see you in November,
Absolutely.
and so good luck to everything, and put a nice letter together for Oprah, and hopefully she.
Oh, I have to have the courage to write her. I guess I
Okay.
don't know why not having the courage. I did send her years ago when I wrote the Dr. Irene's Nutrition Tidbits. I stuck it in the mail, but I just think, and I know she's a very and I know Oprah is so aware of the behavioral
Oh, sure.
importances of nutrition, and also what the drugs are doing, because for some people they will be lifesavers. It's just understanding and screening and knowing the person it's appropriate
Right.
for. And either way, the long-term solution is understanding your food behaviors not related then to the urges of appetite and that
That's
type of thing.
awesome. Well, Irene, I again thank you so much, and I wish you the very best with your book, and I know you're going to do very well with it. Just keep it up, and
Every day.
that's right. And we'll connect in November, and I'll see you then.
Sounds great. Thank you very much,
You're
Brad.
very welcome. Have a wonderful day, Irene.
You too.
Okay, bye
Bye bye
bye.
now.